Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this channel. Yep, you guessed it. If it's your birthday, I want to wish you a happy birthday. ASE testing. It's April 5th, 2016, and just yesterday I took my recertification test for all 8 of my ASE tests, which turned me into a master tech once again for another 5 years. You have to recertify every 5 years. It's the first time I've dealt with this in a while. And I'll be honest, it kind of crept up on me. I wasn't really thinking about it. I marked it in the calendar. I set up my test date. I did all this stuff a while ago, and then last weekend I realized that I was going to have to study because it was yesterday that I was going to have to take the test. A whole lot of things came into question. First of all, I went through the study guides. And a lot of you, well, some of you have reached out to me and said, you know, hey Eric, do you know a good source for, you know, practicing for ASE or things to help me study for ASE, books, that type of thing. This time I opted for the online option, and I found one testing place that, and I'll put links to these in the description. I found one practice test place that was all free. All the questions were the same though, so there weren't any changes. And then I found another one you could pay a subscription for depending upon how many days you wanted access to the service. For 10 days, it was like 15 bucks. And those questions actually did repeat a lot more than I thought they would. They said they were drawing them from a pool of like 125 questions, blah, blah, blah. But I went through the tests on more than one occasion and there was repeat questions. Here's my takeaway. First of all, a test does not make you a good technician. A test, you know, in my opinion, really doesn't certify you, quote unquote. There are people out there that they can pass a test really well, but as far as actual work and work experience, they don't have it. And in this business, I think a lot of people would agree that work experience has a lot to do with your effectiveness as a technician. The test doesn't make you a master technician. It just makes it so that you pass the test. And these questions and the things that they're asking are really all over the place, and so much doesn't apply. And some of these questions are such BS. I literally found myself screaming at the screen sometimes. And this is with the practice test, not with the actual ASE test questions, because they seemed a lot more clear, a lot more straightforward. But some of these practice questions that were modeled after ASE questions, those were really frustrating, some of them. And a lot of the questions that were asked, like I said, don't pertain to modern vehicles at all. I mean, when was the last time you saw a vacuum modulator on a transmission? And you know, I don't recall seeing any of those on the actual tests. Now, ASE, you know, a lot of you may say it's crap or whatever, but I would wager you probably don't have those certifications, or maybe you tried to take them and you didn't pass, and you might have a certain attitude about them as a result of that. And some of you have, like I said, legitimately, ASE in a lot of ways is BS, but it's all we have as far as a standard in the US anyway. The certification itself and what you get for answering a bunch of questions is like, I don't see how it equates to actual ability. But how are they going to measure actual ability? I mean, part of the requirement for ASE testing is that you have 2 years work experience. And if you're going to school, I went to an 18-month program years ago, but that 18 months counted towards 1 year of that work requirement that I needed in order to become actually certified as ASE. So it's not just passing the test. They do want you to demonstrate competency, but there's no real way to check that. It's only your employer saying, yeah, they worked here for a year. But here's the thing. The people that are into ASE, the people that go for it, like I said, some of them are really good test takers, but others, I think it demonstrates a willingness to be better at your profession, to be recognized in your profession as a mechanic. So I think that aspect of it is good. And I also, you know, and some of you have made the argument that it's just something for advertisements for shops to bring customers in. Yes and no. Of course, if you have ASE people working for you, you're going to want to share that with your customer base to let them know that you have hired the best possible people in order to work on their vehicles. But ASE is, you know, it's all we have. Well, all we have is a national standard. There's also dealership certifications, which are way above and beyond anything ASE has to offer. Very similar in nature. However, I became an Acura master technician. And oddly enough, and I've had a conversation with somebody in the comments, I don't remember exactly who they were, who also is about to become a master technician at the dealership where they're working. And I thought it was a little bit interesting that shortly after I became an Acura master technician, I was let go. And it wasn't because of that, it was because of some unrelated reasons. But it's interesting that this person that I'm having this conversation with also has this concern and has had that happen to him before, where he became a master technician in the product line that he was working on. And shortly after that, they let him go. And it's like this double-edged sword kind of thing, because you want it as a matter of pride, but at the same time, the dealership, dealerships are really franchises. They're private entities. They buy into the brand name, whether it be like Nissan or Ford or, Acura, something like that. So some group comes in and they buy the nameplate, and then they're audited by those manufacturers to make sure that they're performing up to those standards. And they have to have so many of these perhaps master techs or people that are certified, which you're sent off to school many times through the dealership to go through their programs. I know GM has like a really good program, so does Ford, I believe. The domestics have a really, really good setup, I think, as far as those are concerned. At least that's what I've heard. I've never been to them directly, but from everything I've heard about those factory training programs, those are pretty darn good, and they've been well established for a number of years. And you're never going to get better information than from the people that actually make the product. So if you're looking for the best information or the best training on something, yes, trade schools do a very good job, but the people that are manufacturer specific, I think that's where it's at. Now this brings me to another point. I also have viewers in other parts of the world. In particular, I'm thinking of someone that I believe works for Range Rover on the Isle of Man, of all places, and has been an apprentice for some time. And the apprentice program, and I think this is also popular in the rest of Europe, the UK and Europe and like that, is they have an apprenticeship program when it comes to mechanics. So they don't have ASE certification per se. What they have is they bring people in and apprentice them, and let them go through step by step and work their way up towards becoming a certain level of proficiency or whatever, and then recognition that goes along with that. I really like this. I really like this for a lot of reasons, is because to me it more closely demonstrates competency and also the mentorship part of it, to where there is someone that hopefully has a vested interest in making sure that you're learning and that you also do well, and that you don't screw up. Because a lot of lessons that I think are learned as a technician, as a mechanic, are those hard lessons. And screwing up is part of that. That's how those hard lessons are learned. But I always like that aspect of it. And there's some of that in the US, but it's not like it is in, like, say, Germany or the UK, as I mentioned, or other parts of Europe, as far as what I've heard. And I kind of like that. But I've also heard in some countries that there are like very few, if any, good mechanics around at all. We're kind of all over the map. And I guess that's, as far as the US is concerned, and ASE, it's something. It's something that, at least, as I said, somebody is making the attempt to demonstrate competency. And you got skin in the game. I had to pay for these tests. Anybody that takes them has to pay for them, whether it be an employer or what. So the employer is making the investments so they can, hang the sign on the door or whatever. Either way, it's something that's out there, and it's something that's accepted. But this was also my first time taking ASE test on a computer. Before, it was like the little bubbles and the dots, and then we had to go through this whole long spiel about coloring outside the lines, and if we had to change our answer. It was just so boring. It made my eyes bleed. But this time I went to an actual testing center, and that's all they did. They weren't just testing people for ASE tests. I mean, there were people taking nursing tests and CDLs and other certifications, maybe even accountants, things like that. And that it was a professional testing center that ASE had hired in order to do this testing, and it was my first experience with this. And despite the, really stringent screening that they went through just to let you in the door, I mean, you had to empty all your pockets, put all your belongings in a locker. They wanted you. They basically made sure that you weren't cheating. The cameras watching you the whole time. They were also looking over your shoulder, watching what you're doing. That part was a little weird, but what I did like is I could just roll on through on the computer, and it was very easy to see the questions, very easy to go back. Number one thing that I liked about it, instant results. Whereas before, when I took those tests with the little coloring, the little bubbles, I mean, it was, 2 or 3 months later that you found out whether or not you passed. You took the test and waited. But now it's instant gratification, which is kind of cool to know right away. I think the testing has come a long way, is what I'm getting at with that. So that part of the experience was good. But like I said, some of those practice questions were so annoying. And I literally found myself screaming expletives at the screen saying, what do you mean, this question, there's more than one answer. There's more than one way to go about this. So that part was a little frustrating, but hey, So, ASE. You asked me to make a video about it. I posted a picture of my stuff on my social network, my past test, and a lot of you congratulated me. Thank you. But I'm good for another 5 years, and I wonder if in another 5 years whether I'll recertify or not. It was kind of stressful as far as a study thing, but I did manage to pass. And like I said, the recertification tests are not as stringent as the initial test to get certified. I feel like I've gone on for a while about this, but I've covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure you're going to have some comments about it. And I want to give you the opportunity to get on with the rest of your day, and also to those comments if you want to. Hey, if you have automotive questions, I'm going to ask you head over to ericthecarguy.com. Link in the description. Also link in the description to stuff, those tests and things I mentioned. So please check there for additional information. Google+, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram if you want to connect with me socially. Close each of my videos. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.